we've talked about like the Sega Mini, Sega Genesis Mini. We talked about the other mini systems a little bit briefly, and they put out the final 12 games.
Yep.
So it brought it to 42 games. They initially said they were going to get 40 on this little plastic mini Sega Genesis.
Okay.
Essentially,
kind of in the vein
for $80.
Kind of in the vein of the NES and SNES retro classic systems.
Yep.
Okay.
We were looking at it and, kind of picking out some games we could see. And really, they've got, I'm not going to use everybody else's term that they use on the air, but they've got great games in here.
Yeah.
They do. And they've got some that are doing it the right way for them. I don't know if everybody's interested in plastic that, you can play video games on.
Right.
But I'm giving it to Sega that they're doing a good job. But I'm not going to sit there and praise them for doing this because a lot of people are saying this is the best one that's come out. I'm like, well, Sega had this recipe kind of written for them. And all they have to do is follow it. They know like the worst one, which is the PlayStation.
They watch some trial and error.
They know the best one, which is the Nintendo NES and Super Nintendo. Really, it's not hard to like work in between those two like deltas and the delta in between and come up with it. So the things that they're doing, the list number one is right. I think we agreed on that. There's maybe 3 games like I could probably say, get out of here. And if
there's a couple games that I'm not personally into, and there's a couple games that I'd not heard of. But I mean,
but I would take all 42 to play.
Sure, yeah,
for sure.
Totally.
All of them are good and solid. If you can pick out the 3 games that you think we're not interested in, leave it in chat, and you may win a free game.
Sure, yeah.
We'll find something to give you for free for a game. But they also did the same thing the Super Nintendo one did. They brought in some games that were previously unreleased.
Because the Super
Darius
Nintendo
is brand new.
Because Super Nintendo had, what was it, Star Fox 2?
Star Fox 2.
Okay.
Yep. Darius is brand new. Then it's really Mega Man The Wily Wars kind of falls into that. Tetris on Sega Genesis is there, but it's ridiculously expensive. It's a tough one to come across.
That's what you were saying when we were talking briefly before this. I was not familiar with, to me, Tetris is universally available everywhere on everything. So when you were like, it's rare on Genesis, I was like, okay. I mean, I understand it. I get it. I didn't think that. If you gave me that list and said, pick which one of these is ultra rare, I would have never guessed Tetris.
Yeah.
Right.
Tetris was, because you remember Tetris being on all Game Boys ever.
Yeah.
Game Boys always came with Tetris.
I probably lost my copy of Tetris and bought another one, and then at some point found it, and I had 2.
I started retiling a pool with Tetris cartridges. Not really, but there's that many out there that you could easily come across tons of Tetris games. So yeah, having Tetris on here is kind of unique. But I mean, they picked all the big winners and all the big games. Monster World 4 as well. I've never played, and I know that one's a little bit tough to come across.
Neither have I.
But all the other ones like Strider and all the Space Harrier, Street Fighters, Wonder Boy and Monsterland, all the way go to the top. You're talking about I was not a big Alex Kidd fan, but played it. Eternal Champions we were talking about. Echo the Dolphin, loved playing that.
Bloodlines on there.
Bloodlines, yeah. I mean, that Castlevania one, that's an expensive game, too.
So
they kind of did all that right.
Yeah.
Right? And then let's take a look at the actual console if you haven't seen it.
One thing I really like about it is, we've talked about this of
It is Baltimore, you're right, man.
What if Nintendo were to do an N64 Mini or something? To me, that is basically a Nintendo and Rare machine. If you picked the 10 or 12.
It's tough to do it that way.
Right, and I feel like Sega did an awesome service here where they got a little bit of something from a lot of developers from that era of time. It's not like 20 Capcom games and 20 Sega games, right?
Yeah. Here's what it looks like. They took from what PlayStation did well, although PlayStation's kind of failed and burned and
games weren't amazing.
Fabulous explosion, but they took and added 2 controllers in. So you get 2 3-button controllers, not the 6-button, but you get 2 3-button controllers. I'll hold 2 fingers up, but actually say 3-button controllers. But they did license that out so that you can get a 6-button controller
for people that really want those 6-button controls.
So they're making those, and it looks. Oops, did I go the wrong way? There we go. It looks, it's got USB ports, which makes sense. So you might be able to use some other controllers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2 controllers is very smart. I agree with that, Baltimore. I mean, it looks just like it. I mean, there was another company called At Games that made tons of Genesis clones.
Okay.
With games built into them, and they were horrible. So I'm hoping better for this one. Let's see here. The other thing was in Japan, Sega's doing a little bit extra, like they always do, and they're making the Tower of Power.
Dude, this is ridiculous.
This is
in every
really
way.
crazy because none of this stuff adds any benefit to the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive Mini. It's just
not
visual
Sonic and Knuckles,
plastic.
not the CD, not the 32X.
Yeah. You kind of see here, you've got the Sonic cart in the Sonic and Knuckles double decker or whatever they want to call it.
Which basically added Knuckles to the game as a playable
that's all it
character.
did. You've got the Sega Mega or the 32X that sits on top of the Mega Drive. And then you've got the Mega Drive CD that it sits on. But all of these things are just plastic. They don't do anything.
The only thing it's missing is a Game Genie, as far as I'm concerned. And
Yeah, you could have
stack
stacked
the
that
Game
on
Genie
and
on
stacked
top
it
of
up.
it.
They called it the Tower of Power back in the day. It was kind of funny.